In the headlines around the world for the last few years, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of Indigenous children in Canada murdered, put in unmarked graves. And it was wrong. You could not say anything about that except for some Native leaders who said that's really not the case. But the governments and the politicians all went for that. And now some brave writers, Conrad Black, Terry Glavin, are starting to say, you know what, the media has this wrong. Part of the media is Brian Lilley, and he joins me now because we've been chatting about this. And there's no question, the Indigenous people suffered at the hands of all governments right up until Pierre Trudeau's government of residential schools. We don't know how many, and there's been no ascertaining of the graves, but what's going on with the media in this? Why do they perpetuate the baloney?
Well, and now they're attacking people like Terry Glavin for a very thoughtful piece.
Yes.
That looked he didn't say these aren't graves. He didn't say these things didn't happen. He said the media characterization of it was incredibly wrong. And
thousands and thousands, and now the minister is saying, you can't say that.
So he's being attacked for that. Look, I remember when the Kamloops Indian Residential School, that was the first one that we heard of, 215. And Sun's part of Post Media, we have papers across the country. Our reporters from Vancouver papers went out there. And initially it was being called mass graves. And it was the local band that reached out and said, please don't call these mass graves. They're not mass graves. These are unmarked graves. Cowessess First Nation in Saskatchewan, the leaders that held their news conference were very measured in how they described things.
Right.
The media afterwards were not. They described how this was a community gravesite, that not everyone in it was a child, that they didn't know. Yes, there were many residential school children in there, but it had been used as part of the church gravesite.
And so we don't know the numbers.
No, and it's important to find that out. But instead of funding that, which Justin Trudeau had promised to do in 2016, I think, he took a knee, showed up with a teddy bear, and inflamed the language around that. We kept our flag on Parliament Hill at half-mast for what, 6 months?
So why are people putting up with that when political leaders are using a tragedy, the extent of which we don't know, blowing it up into a huge tragedy, shaming the name of Canada around the world? And now it seems to be wearing out, but when writers like Glavin are pointing out that there's an issue here, they are being attacked by the Minister of Indigenous Affairs in Ottawa.
And by other people in the media who want to perpetuate this. They want to claim that these children were murdered. Did that happen? It may have in some cases, but mostly we're talking about childhood diseases that were rampant, that killed a lot of kids. We're talking about neglect, absolutely. But to make it sound like the schools were filled with murderous priests and nuns just going around randomly stabbing kids and burying them out back in a hidden grave isn't actually what happened. And yet that has too often been the depiction, implied or otherwise. And we need to tell the real story. Tell the truth, tell the whole story.
Let's have more journalists with guts like you. Thank you very much. 3 minutes. Every day, Justin Trudeau tells you, I am making life more affordable for Canadians. And if you believe that, don't watch the station. But if you think that's baloney, as I do, that's a lie, then keep watching for non-biased, non-Prime Minister's Office funded news analysis. To keep us on the air, please donate. PayPal or send a check, 303 Bay Street in Toronto. We'll get it. We need the money.